Before we leave section 1.2 behind, let's have one more example where we see the definitions as well as why we need to be cautious for correlation and causation arguments. So the article, Student Drug Testing Does Not Cause Reduced Drug Use, reported results from a study of students in 497 high schools and 225 middle schools nationwide. Each student in the study filled out an anonymous questionnaire. It's important it was anonymous. I forgot to write that in originally. One question asked whether the students used drugs. The study found that the drug use was similar in schools that tested for drugs and in schools that did not test for drugs, and the results are shown in the table. So here you have drug tests in the school. So yes, drug test was in the school, or no, drug testing was not in the school. And then this should be the drug use yes and drug use no. That was a typo there. So it's drug use. So in schools that had drug testing, about 37% of the students reported using drugs. In schools that did not have drug testing, about 36% reported using drugs. All right, now the explanatory variable here is what we're trying to see a difference in. And you can kind of tell it from the sentence up here. Student drug testing does not cause reduced drug use. So drug testing is your explanatory variable. It's the thing that's altering from one group to the next. And that would be this explanatory variable here. And that would be drug testing in the schools. So if we have drug testing in the schools, will that affect some kind of change in the drug usage? The drug usage will be the response variable, right? The thing that's changing from one group of kids to the other, right? That would be the response variable. And it's in the back half of that statement up above. Reduced drug use, right there. And it's also where this is coming from. Drug use yes, drug use no. Honestly, I didn't have to give you both columns because once you know the group of yes, you know the group no as well. But nevertheless, is drug use higher or lower for these two? So what you really want to compare is the 37% and the 36%, or conversely, the 63 and the 64%. Are they really different between the two groups? That would be your response variable. Now the population, you can tell from the word they used, nationwide. Right here, the word nationwide. They say they're testing a whole bunch of students, middle school and high school students nationwide, which means they're interested, one would assume since this was a University of Michigan study, by the way. I believe, almost positive it was University of Michigan. Then they're interested in all middle and high school students in the U.S. because Michigan's in the U.S. So that would be, the population would be all middle school and high school students in the entirety of the nation of the United States, the U.S. All right, now the sample then would be the group that they picked. The sample would be the middle school and high school students that they asked from these schools, which comes to 5,653 from the yes, there's drug testing in my school group, and 17,437 students from the no, there is no drug testing in my school group, which makes a grand total of 23,090 students when you add those two numbers up. That would be your sample size, which is capital or little lowercase n. Technically, this would be like n for the yes group, this would be n for the no group, and together, total, they make the n for the total. There we go. I put the little word total after that so you can see it. Now, was this an observational study or a designed experiment? Oh, very much an observational study. These researchers at University of Michigan, they didn't force students to live in schools or to go to schools that had drug testing, or force students randomly to go to schools that did not have drug testing. They simply asked questions that were already, or asked questions of students that were already in those groups. So the students were not placed in those groups. They were not randomly put there by the researchers. That makes it an observational study. Right? When you're just asking people that are already in an area questions, that's observational. Now, explain why in detail. It is incorrect for the article to have a title stating student drug testing does not cause reduced drug use. Well, yes, that word cause, that's a problem. You can't really make causal claims whenever you're working with an observational study, pretty much ever. And it can even be hard, quite frankly, in some designed experiments, especially if they're poorly designed. And that's because there is the possibility of lurking variables. So because this is an observational study, we can't say that drug testing doesn't cause, to say that drug testing does not cause reduced drug use. That's a problem right here. And that's because there are lurking variables that could be affecting both drug testing and drug use that are referred to in this article. So what they're getting at is that, hey, whether you have drug testing in your school or not, about 37% of the kids are using drugs. It doesn't matter whether you have drug testing or not. That's what they're trying to get at. But the danger is in using that word cause. That's problematic right here. And that's because there are other things that could be affecting what's going on. For example, were these urban districts, suburban, rural? What's the poverty level of the district? What's the policing of drugs in that district? Is this a place where police officers are really getting after drugs, or is it a place where they're kind of letting it go? And what's the definition of drugs exactly? Do prescription drugs count or not? And that kind of thing. So there's a lot going on in here that could be affecting the results that we're not getting at with our simple questions. And that's why we shouldn't be talking about causation for this particular problem. All right, we're all done with section 1.2. I'll see you back here for more videos.